Hey ChatGPT, can you do me a favor and create a really good superhero origin movie? Now take that same exact movie, but remake it with a different character. Now do it one more time. Maybe one more time. Now do it, but for DC. Now one last task. I want you to take that movie, and I want you to make it significantly more generic. There we go.
Ooh, that's a bingo.
So I just saw Blue Beetle, the new DC movie, and what I believe might be the first DC movie in James Gunn's new universe. I don't really know. They don't really specify in the movie what kind of universe it takes place in. But it is a movie set in some DC universe covering the character of Jamie Reyes, who plays the Blue Beetle. And if you've never heard of this character, join the club. I've seen this character in Injustice 2. Other than that, I've never really heard of him. Don't really know anything about him. But regardless, he's got his own movie. This movie was originally intended to be an HBO Max exclusive, but then when the new Discovery, Warner Brothers merger happened, they stopped wanting to make movies for a streaming service and decided to release this in theaters. There was another movie they made that was meant for HBO Max. I kind of forget what happened to that one. Somebody jog my memory. What was it? I think it was some sort of Bat-type movie. It's not like they filmed it or anything.
Never heard of it.
But either way, this movie is out, and I have seen it, and it is okay. It's fine. I really don't know how to do this review, because like I kind of did in this little stupid intro thing, this movie is a movie that I feel like I've seen 100 times before. And it's not a bad movie. It's really not. It's a fine movie. It's a formula that works, which is why these comic book movies have been recreating this formula for years and years and years, even before Iron Man. So yes, Blue Beetle is a fine movie. It's got, decent characters. There's clearly a lot of heart in the film that was felt by the actors as well as the directors and the writers and everybody behind it. There's definitely a soul to this movie that you don't get with a lot of modern comic book movies. The comedy hits at times. I mean, George Lopez is really the comic relief in this movie, and pretty much everything he does hits well and made me laugh. The main actor, I'm not sure of his name. I know he's in Cobra Kai. He does a fine job. And there's a really emotional family dynamic in the movie. It works. It all works. It's fine. But what else does the movie have? A ton of generic CGI bullshit. A really generic, big, gigantic CGI villain. A secondary villain who's the mean, nasty, corporate, jackass. All the generic shit that you usually get from these movies. But let me just kind of get into it. I'll start with the main pros of the movie, and I'll kind of go through everything that I did like about it. Like I just said before, this movie does have a lot of heart in it. This movie at its core is a family movie. It's about this Reyes family. This family that is sort of struggling, but they're still getting by because they have each other. They're this family unit. And this goes on until Jamie Reyes eventually comes in contact with, I think that's called the Scarif. Essentially this little robot thing. It connects with his body, and you get this Venom-type symbiotic relationship, except instead of a symbiote, it's a fucking mech. And he becomes the Blue Beetle, which is this superhero that can do cool shit like every other superhero. And there's a bad guy that wants the Scarif or the suit or whatever it is, and of course that creates conflict within the family, within the bad guys, and there we go. We have a comic book movie. I will say Jamie as a character is well written. He's good. You understand his wants, you understand his needs, you understand his goals. He's got a clear moral code, and you really understand everything that Jamie is about, and I did like that. I will say I also like the family members. Every single one of them has a role to play. Every single one of them gets their little moment to shine. There's not a wasted character there. And although some of them can be a little bit goofy at times, some of them, the goofiness actually works. Like, I love the grandma. She's hilarious. George Lopez, obviously the main one. And why is George Lopez not in more stuff? I mean, he's so good, and he just does not get cast enough in Hollywood. I thought the sister was fine. The mother, probably the more forgettable one. And then the father. I can't think of this actor's name. I feel like I've seen him before. Correct me if I'm wrong, but was this guy in Narcos? But he's great. One thing I didn't love is kind of the relationship between Jamie and the Scarif earlier in the movie. So I kind of figured this would be more like Venom, because they keep telling you that Jamie and this symbiote thing, they have a symbiotic relationship, that it's its own living entity, and I never really felt that. It really just felt like a mech suit that he couldn't get off of him. It didn't feel like something that had its own personality and its own thoughts until the closing moments of the movie, and I'm not really sure that I enjoyed that. Maybe, I don't know if that's what it's like in the comic books, but I kind of was expecting and hoping that it would be a little bit more like the relationship between Venom and Tom Hardy in the Venom movies. But the suit is cool. I will say, when it's not CGI, when it is the practical suit that they built for the movie, it looks amazing. There are some kind of sort of practical, effects that they do in some of the fight scenes that are cool, and I guess the powers of the suit, I don't know. It's a whole bunch of comic book movie jambalaya, whatever the fuck you want to call it. It's a lot of nonsense, but some of it does look good. It looks a lot better than anything from like the Flash movie earlier this year. I will say there was one character I just did not like at all. It was the niece. I can't think of her name. I'm just going to call her Hilary Swank because she kind of looks like Hilary Swank. She's like the niece of the main bad guy, and she just comes in, and the first shot of her in this movie is fucking hilarious. She's just sitting on this bench, like full fucking man spreading, just mean mugging, and I was like, oh, here we go. Here comes the strong, empowered female character that can do no wrong.
It's no longer 1937.
I just wasn't a fan of her character. I don't know if it was the actress or the writing or anything else, but she just did not really have any chemistry with the actor that plays Jamie Reyes, which really made a lot of those scenes together between the two really awkward, and her character as a whole just did not work for me whatsoever. And there's always a character like this in these movies that just reminds you that it's a comic book movie. The villains, I don't know if I talked about the villains, but I'm going to talk about them here. You really have two. You have like the main baddie, this big, CEO dickhead. She's like the female Logan Roy, but even worse, just this evil bitch, and you really don't understand her intentions or her wants or her needs. I guess she just wants money, and she's just an evil bitch. And then you have this other guy who's her muscle. He's just this big dude who gets, similar powers to Jamie, and, they fight it out, and he's got, like, an emotional story near the end that made me feel a little bit of something, but at the end of the day, it's really nothing new or special. The movie does have pretty good music supervision. There's a few songs that I really enjoyed when they popped up in the movie. A little bit of Motley Crue that I appreciated. And I do appreciate the fact that it felt mostly disconnected from the outside universe. This movie didn't feel like it was trying to build upon or build into a universe. It just felt like it wanted to tell its own story, which I really love, because there's way too... Every comic book movie these days just feels like it's setting up the next 20 comic book movies that might not even ever get made. But with a lot of the positives that I just gave, I gotta say, yet again, this is just another generic comic book movie to me. This is a movie that I'm not gonna remember, 2 weeks from now. It doesn't really do anything new, and it plays it really, really safe. And I understand why they played it safe, because the movie was supposed to be one of the first HBO Max movies, something to really launch that streaming service into a different realm of possibilities, creating comic book movies that are exclusively made for the service. So of course they would play it safe. They're not going to take a massive, massive risk and do something crazy with that first movie. Now, of course, plans have changed, and this was released into theaters, and it's just a generic theatrical comic book movie. So I get why they played it safe, but I really wish that these comic book movies would stop playing it safe, and just let loose, and just tell unique and original and fun stories that could just be amazing, and push the boundaries of cinematic visions and more practicality. Please, I'm so sick of these movies being like 90% created on a computer. We could do practical comic book movies. It's been done in the past. More practical, the better. Get off the goddamn computers. But yeah, this movie's fine. Like, I'd give it a 3 out of 5. If you like comic book movies, you're probably really gonna like this movie. If you're not a fan of comic book movies, this one's probably not the one that's gonna win you over. But it's a fine movie. It's just a movie you've seen 100 times. If you've seen any comic book movie ever over the last decade, you've seen this movie 100 times. And because of that, I can't really give it anything more than a 3 out of 5. This came out in 2008. Instant classic. 5 out of 5. Great comic book movie. But it's 2023, guys. And although I did have a good time with it, yet again, I just wish it was a little bit more. So yeah, it's definitely not good enough to be a 4, and it's definitely not mediocre enough to be a 2. It's definitely one of the better comic book movies of the year. I think Guardians was probably a little bit better than it, but it's been a really bad year for comic book movies. I don't know where the DC universe is going from here. I know we're probably not getting another DC movie next year. I think there's an Aquaman movie coming out this year, right, in December, which I wouldn't be excited about, but hey, James Wan, I do like my guy James Wan. He makes some good movies. But after that, I don't think we're getting anything until James Gunn's Superman movie in a couple years, and I don't know, this comic book movies just, they're not scratching that itch for me anymore, but hopefully they can get better. But thank you guys for watching. Have you guys seen Blue Beetle? If you have, leave that down below what you thought of that movie. If you agree with me, if you disagree with me, and you hate my guts, let me know down below. Make sure to like this video and subscribe for more. Turn on notifications to see every single one of my posts when I upload them, and I will see you all in the next one.